Hi, this is Frank Buck, and this is the place to be if you want to get organized and make it look easy. During June, we've been talking about taking a big picture look at your life, stepping back to see what you might want to improve, what you might want to change. We've talked about how important the summer is, how important it is to make that summer count. Because for most of us, this is the largest block of discretionary time we'll have all year. You've been introduced to a guest who's helped you get fit at your desk. You've been introduced to another guest who's helped us with our finances. And today is a guest whose appearance was inspired by a comment from a reader. Sarah left this comment on a YouTube video. She says, "Could you please make a video about how to make your dreams come true? I want to study abroad, but my financial condition does not allow me to do so, and I cannot work because I need to focus on my studies." Well, when I read that comment, I immediately thought of the guest that you're going to meet today. And if you want to make your dream of locating or studying abroad come true, you're going to enjoy this one. And as a bonus, if you've ever thought about starting your own business from scratch, especially as a young person, you're going to get some inspiration today. Camillia Fitzsimmons is the founder of Mover Shaker Media. She got her start in the tech industry. And while working as the first employee of a startup, she built an influencer marketing department from the ground up that generated the company's first few million shoppers. Her experience includes managing million-dollar budgets, sponsoring thousands of pieces of content, and building hundreds of influences and relationships. She started her own agency to use the skills that she gained to benefit a wide variety of businesses. Camilla is Canadian by birth, but she relocated to Israel, where she now holds dual citizenship in both Canada and Israel. So let's dive into relocating to another country and starting your own business in my conversation with Camilla Fitzsimmons. Welcome, everyone. This month, we've been talking about stepping back and looking at the big picture as far as your life is concerned. Have you ever thought about relocating in a foreign country and would have absolutely no way to know how to begin? Or have you ever thought about starting your very own business from scratch? But again, how do you do it? Well, do I have a treat for you today? You've just heard Camelia's introduction, and we're going to be talking about both of those things. So, Camelia, welcome.
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
So, start us off. Let's begin at the beginning with where you grew up and then what led to the decision to now live somewhere entirely different.
Okay, sure. So I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada. That's where I grew up, and I was studying there. I did a special trip for business students where we went to Israel, and we met with different startup companies, and I was really just like fascinated by the culture. There was a great startup scene there. So when I graduated, I went back to do an internship and fell in love with the company. I was having the best time. So I worked really, really hard to the point where they would hire me. And they did. So that worked out. And that's how I ended up staying. And I had a great experience there. But eventually I ended up taking the leap and starting my own thing.
Hmm?
It's been quite the adventure.
So, talk to us about the whole, I'm doing good to pack a suitcase to go over on a weekend trip somewhere. What are some of the things? First of all, what was a whole lot easier to do as far as moving all of your worldly possessions and relocating and so forth? So now we're not just doing an internship and coming right back home, but now what are some of the things that were a lot easier than you might think? And then what are some of the things that people don't think about, but they really need to think about them?
Good questions. So I went there without really knowing anyone. So I was a little bit intimidated by having to go out, having to meet new people, and build friends from scratch. But I kept it in mind that if I'm not having fun, I don't have to stay. Like I should just put myself out there, talk to people, and see what happens. So I did that over and over again. And eventually I built a network and I made some really good friends who I'm still friends with now. Um, Things that you need to keep in mind, there can be big cultural differences. Like, for example, where I'm from in Canada, everyone lines up, like also in the United States. I know it's the same. You line up when
Yep.
you need something. But in the Middle East, it's not like that. It's whoever gets to the front of the line first, they win. You have to like not get upset by things like that. Just keep an open
Okay.
mind and remember that people don't mean anything by it. It's just a cultural difference.
So it that's interesting. I never heard that before. So is it sort of like in your own mind, if this is kind of urgent, kind of like the things in the United States where you'd say, "Gosh, I'm about to miss my plane." When you're in the line at Chick-fil-A and you say, "Would you let me?" Is it sort of that kind of thing that in your own mind this is sort of urgent? So I'm going to go to the front, and no, I got plenty of time. I'm going to stay back, or do we all just kind of elbow our way to the front?
Everyone's elbowing their way to the front. Everyone wants to get there first.
Okay. How long before you said, "Yeah, this is working. I like this. I'm here for the long haul."
So I actually felt a connection right away. It's a very warm culture. So I made a lot of friends very quickly and I was loving the people. I think the people are really what made it. So that's
Hmm?
a big tip. Just put yourself out there,
Okay.
get to know people.
Yeah. And let me ask this, what year was that? And I'm going to actually adjust my cam a little bit here. So was that pre-COVID, post-COVID, right during COVID?
So that was actually a little bit before COVID.
Okay.
So COVID was a tough time for all of us.
Hmm. Yeah. So
Yeah,
you were able to get out and start making the connections face to face, person to person before COVID hit, and then sort of continue
yes,
those.
that helped a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's is great. Um, so citizenship. So are you now an Israeli citizen, or is this like a visa? I, I'm not sure how that whole thing works.
Yes, so I have dual citizenship. Um,
Okay.
the bureaucracy is another thing that I think a lot of people don't expect. Um, like whenever you're going to a new country, there's going to be a lot of paperwork, no matter where you go.
Hmm.
So save time for that.
Okay. But you were able to actually, you still have your Canadian citizenship, and you're also officially an Israeli citizen. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Um, and those that heard my intro to you know that sort of a lot of what prompted today, in addition to, my experience with you before and wanting to get you on the show for one reason or another, um, is, that reader reaching out to me saying, I want to go and study abroad. How do I? So if it was somebody, say, looking for an internship or they want to study in a university, what would be your suggestions as far how to get started with that process?
Is a great question. Like I would talk to people working in your university. Maybe you have a counselor that you can consult with. I'm sure they're aware of all of the programs. Um, I don't know if there's a specific place that you're particularly interested in. They probably have Facebook groups for people who are also interested in doing something similar, so you can look there.
Okay. Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think those would be the two places I would start with.
All right. Sounds great. So, segue now a little bit into the business that you have and maybe how all that came about. Um, so when you went to college, what was the goal at that point? Where it sort of the where do you see yourself in 5 years? How would you have answered that, say, coming out of high school, going into college?
So when I was first starting college, I wasn't really sure. So I just took different classes to feel things out and get a feel for it. Eventually, I became interested in business and entrepreneurship, and that's what led me to do this trip abroad. Um, yeah, so I think experiment a little bit. Like, and another thing I'll add, passion isn't always found; it's also built. I think just like look into things that you're interested in. If you're enjoying it, work hard, and you'll just become that much more passionate over time.
Okay. Now let's get to today. So tell our listeners about your company as it is right now.
Okay, I started a company called Mover Shaker Media, and I specialize in content, creator partnerships, and social media. Um, but I've actually been thinking lately about what I like to do the most at work, and it led me to a little bit of a side project. So now I'm also working on creating a game. So I'm writing content, I'm writing card prompts that I think people are going to have a lot of fun with and that are going to get them to think. So, like, it's one of those things you wouldn't think it's related, but it kind of is. And I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Okay. So is that involving a lot of the coding? Is that, or do you have someone who's doing the coding and you're the idea person with here's what I want the program to do?
So, it's actually a physical game, it's a card game. So, I'm really
Oh,
just coming
okay.
up with the mechanics and the card prompts. And yeah, it's a work in progress.
All right. In very, very interesting. So that's some of your day. So if we're following you around for say a typical day, a typical week, so we're seeing you develop the card game, and then what else is the rest of your day like?
The rest of my day. Okay, so I'm working with a few different companies right now. Um, Diverse, actually. Some of them are in finance, one of them is in book publicity. So I'm getting on calls with them. I'm coming up with creative ideas. I'm making videos, designing graphics, doing some strategic work,
Hmm.
looking at data.
Okay. So with the common thread with all of them being the marketing aspect, that they need
Exactly.
someone to help them define their message, know how to get that message out into the world.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So when did you start the company? How long have we?
So I think it's about 2 years now, about
Okay.
2 years old. But in the early days, I was really just like creating a website, figuring out how I would market myself. It took a little bit of time to get it off the ground,
Hmm.
but 2 years in and really enjoying it a lot.
Okay. And so what were you doing while that was, how were you putting food on the table as you were planning your own business?
That was really just through my own savings. So save money, live within your means, and then you can use that to fund different things that you want to do.
Okay. Fantastic. Yeah. I guess that. So walk us through because I know so many people are out there and they want to go out on their own. They're tired of working for the man, and the 9 to 5, and there's sort of a ceiling on how much money you can make, and just the restrictions that you have, and they want to go out on their own, but they're a little bit afraid. How do you start?
How do you start? Well, I think that for me it was something I always wanted to do, and like I was just very passionate about it. So
Yeah.
I had a very clear why. I
Hmm.
had like a vision of what I wanted my life to look like. I wanted to have freedom. I wanted to like build something that meant something to me. Um, so yeah, I would do that. Saving money helps, and you don't have to just go all in as well. You can always start your business while you're still working. That can also
Hmm?
be a very smart way to do it. And always be educating yourself. I can share some book recommendations if you like.
Definitely. Go ahead and give us a few, and of course, also in the show notes, we'll list those, your website, all kinds of good stuff that's going to make that sort of a next step for the people that are watching and listening to us today.
Sounds good. So one of them is called The Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman, and it's like an
Okay.
encyclopedia of business knowledge. It covers everything from how to work effectively by yourself, how to work with other people, how to build systems, how to do sales, how to do marketing, covers finance, of course, all kinds of
Wow.
topics. So
Okay.
that's a great one to have on hand. And I actually just started reading a book recently. I'm only 3 chapters in, but very impressed so far. And it's called, I think, Living a Passionate Secrets of Living a Passionate Life by Tal
Okay.
Safani. And it's about like how to identify what you really love so that you can then pursue it.
Okay, great. Great. Again, we'll put those in, in the show notes. I'm thinking about my own journey. I was in education for almost 30 years and, could retire and did retire. You've got the retirement for the rest of your life. I don't have to do anything. So all of the organization, time management, the books, et cetera. Um, and of course, I really had that going for, oh, gosh, a long time, over a decade, was doing workshops and that sort of thing. So that was sort of evolving while I still had my day job. And for me, I know so many people said, you could just do this full time, you could retire it. And and to me, that was kind of the message of, now's the time, now the time is right. When other people were saying, hey, you could do this and do it full time, that was the time to maybe think about it. Of course, that's another couple of decades down the road from, where you are. So I'm impressed with it, being very early in your post college years, being able to go out and do something. So on your own right now, or do you have staff? Do you contract with some other people? Are you a one woman show?
So it's really just me for now. Like I'm hoping that of course I'll grow over time and can expand, but yeah.
Fantastic. Um, Gosh, let me ask first of all this. What have we not talked about that you were hoping we would, and I just haven't asked the right question yet?
Well, I think that we covered a lot of it. Um, well, I could ask you some questions.
Hey, I'm game.
Okay. Um, okay, so I love to use Notion. What are some of your favorite tools for staying productive and staying organized as a business owner?
Okay. Well, whereas you use Notion, I use Evernote. So that's going to be a kind of a parallel. And I know there's a lot of, there are people that said, well, I used Evernote and I went to Notion and I love it. And then there are those people that said, oh, I hate Notion. It's the learning curve. I love Evernote. So Evernote's my place for the reference information. And I know people have asked me, and they probably have asked you, well, why don't you just use Word and, a spreadsheet? And I'm going, no, you don't understand. Yeah, that this is the digital notes versus digital documents. It's sometimes hard to explain, but it's a whole world apart. So it's sort of Evernote for the reference, and then I use Remember the Milk for my digital task manager. So all the things I have to
Okay.
do are in Remember the Milk, and the reference information that's going to support doing those things is living in Evernote. For example, there's a note for what we're doing right now. So your bio, the um, message originally sent to me by the young lady who was going to study abroad. Okay, that's also in that note. Everything surrounding this project with you and I is in that one note in Evernote. And then eventually it will have the link that would take us right to the YouTube video or to the podcast or to the blog post. And 5 years from now, I'd be able to go back to that and there it all is. So Notion for you, that's your projects, your notes, also for your tasks as well.
Yes, but I really have a love-hate relationship with Notion, so I might want to
Okay.
try some of the tools you're using. Notion, it can do a lot, but it also has a very steep learning curve. Like sometimes you
Hmm?
can spend more time actually setting things up than actually making use of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think tools, having as many tools as you need and no more. I like to have a few tools and use really use those things. So yeah, yeah. Good question. That's you got me onto something I'd love to talk about. What else is on your mind?
Well, I love talking about books. So if you have any book recommendations when it comes to productivity or organization, that would be great. I've been meaning
You
to
know,
read Getting Things Done by David Allen.
you took the words right out of my mouth because I think everybody, that is sort of the book, and I think it came along at the right time. Um, I stumbled upon David Allen before he was getting things done. This was like 1997. I stumbled across his website, the workshops he was doing. I think he was calling it managing actions in projects. I might not have that exactly right, but it was something along that line. And he had these wonderful essays on his website that eventually became the book, Ready for Anything. And so he was talking on the website about, oh, I got a book contract and I'll be coming. We're trying to get a name for the book and all that. So, and he came along at that time where the only game in town really was Franklin Covey with here are your daily pages. So here was your daily to-do list, and whatever you didn't get done, you had to write on to the next day. And that's what everybody hated was rewriting all those lists. And we were still back in the pencil and paper days where everybody had their paper planner. And so David came along with a different concept that, oh, no, no, no. It doesn't all have to be done today, but group the things. Put your phone calls together, put your errands together, that sort of thing, so that when you go out to run one errand, you can just run all the errands. And if you don't run them today, then you run them all tomorrow. And it was also about the time that the palm was, that going from digital to paper to digital and getting things done. That whole concept works so well with the Palm that you could have your errands list and your phone call list and your agendas list and your waiting for list. So, yeah, definitely everybody getting things done. My favorite is a little book called Time Power that came out in the late 80s, written by Dr. Charles Hobbs, who has recently passed away. And it was sort of like how to use the daytime or Franklin planner. That was what he was doing. And it was so well written and so elegant. And so it it really inspired me to, as I'm doing things digitally, how can I come up with a system digitally that is as elegant? And how can I explain it in a way that was as elegant as Charles Hobbs did? So, kind of one from way back. And what I tell people is, if you read that book and then think to yourself, okay, how would I do that thing? How would I handle that concept digitally? And if you got a good understanding and you go, yeah, I can, then you're okay. If not, if you're, well, with a digital tool, it's easier to put stuff in and it's also easier to lose stuff if you you know, don't have it organized. Yeah. Well, I love the tools. Love the tools. What else other than Notion? What are some other things that you found helpful?
Other tools that I like. Well, I'm trying to make the most of AI. Everything is changing so fast and there's so much to learn. Um, But I was trying copy AI recently, and that was pretty cool.
Hmm?
Um, yeah, so actually for my card game, something I was trying to write card prompts in the style of different comedians. So that
Yay!
so that was kind of cool. Um, yeah, so there's that I like. ChatGPT, Essential, Perplexity.
Yeah,
But I don't know, maybe if you or if any of your listeners have any recommendations, we could leave them in the comments. That could be very valuable.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think it was maybe 3 years ago that Chat GPT was like the thing we were all learning about. I remember seeing in a Facebook group for school principals that, uh-oh, folks, it's here. Your worst nightmare has just been realized. Your kids will be able to say, write me a 5-page paper on the history of the Revolutionary War, and it will do it for them. We're dead. And now we're going, yeah, we've had to adjust. It was kind of like the days when you said a 5-page paper on the history of the American Revolution, and a kid sat down with the Encyclopedia Britannica and copied word for word and put his name at the top. Well, we had to deal with that then. It's a little more sophisticated now, but we're still dealing with it. Yeah, I love AI. And in fact, the project that we're working with today, um, I'm going to have show notes, and I'll have a newspaper column, and that'll have to have some different wording. But oh, and here's one thing. For those that are using Gemini, well, let's back up. For those who are using Chat GPT, once this publishes, and if someone wanted to write a summary of what we talked about, they could go to Chat GPT and say, could you give me a summary of this particular YouTube video? And Chat GPT would very nicely say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. However, you can download a transcript, and see, most people don't know how that you can do that with any YouTube video. But it'll say, here's how you can download a transcript. And then if you'll copy and paste the transcript here into ChatGPT, then I can give you a nice summary. And Gemini, a product of Google, YouTube, a product of Google. And one thing about Google is Google loves Google. If you say the same thing to Gemini, could you give me a summary, or could you give me an outline, or could you give me a detailed outline even of this YouTube video? Boop, give it the link. Sure, I'll be glad to do that. And it gives it to you time stamped with, oh gosh, I'd love to go to that spot in the video. Click, and you're there. So, gone are the days when I don't really want to listen to this whole thing. Let me put it on triple speed. No. Or the days where you're like, I'm really interested in this video. I just want to take notes while they're doing this. All right, well, let me start you off with some notes so that you don't have to do the whole thing. Oh, it is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. Do you
So
think it
cool.
will? Yeah. Now, do you think it will replace your job?
Um, you know what? Maybe maybe eventually it could do a lot of what I do, but right
Oh,
now, definitely not. Um, yeah, I think there's definitely room for your own thinking and putting your own unique spin on things. Like there's only one you, so
yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah. But I think it's very important to stay up to date and to
Hmm.
try to use these tools to the best of your advantage.
Yeah. I've seen where people have said, that AI is not going to replace your job or my job. That's what's going to replace us is other people that do know how to use
Yes.
these tools to make mundane things easier, and keep us from having to start with the blank page. uh, and I like what you said about you're writing something in the style of so and so.
Yes.
Neat little thing for beginners would be take something and just paste it in Chat GPT and say, could you rewrite this in the style of William Shakespeare, and it does it for you. Or could you take this and rewrite it as a limerick,
Yeah, you
and
can
it does
really
it for you?
yeah, you can create like a very special, unique voice by giving AI the right prompts.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like for the say the solo blog post, or the solo shows that I do, and I've got in mind what I want to say, so I'll grab my phone, I'll create a new note in Evernote, and just hit the little microphone button and start talking, and basically talking the script of the blog, of the blog post. So now it's synced to my computer, and pretty much that's giving me enough where I can sit down in front of the camera with that Evernote note on screen and just talk and record the video. But now I've got to sort of really clean that up for the blog post. And I definitely have to clean up all that wording if it's going to be a newspaper column. And that newspaper column needs to be about 600 words. So, yeah, I've got to adjust that. And gosh, for the blog, I need a focus keyword, and I need a meta description, and I need tags for the YouTube, and oh, and I need a few tweets. Oh my goodness, the stuff. So I have one prompt that I've saved, that I go. I love Claude for writing, so I'll take that prompt, paste it in Claude. Say I'm working on, below is the script, da 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 da. I want you to do these things, blah, and then paste that script that I had been talking into my phone on the fly, stand back, and it's my thoughts. And it sounds like me. And it's pretty much giving what I would have produced if I had 4 more hours. And so now that frees me up to do something every week instead of going, well, we're just not going to be able to do any content the next several weeks because I've got some other things I've got to get through in my life. So yeah, love that you brought up AI. What else? What else? I'm loving this.
Yeah, it's a huge time saver. I love talking about AI too. What else? Let me think. Um, Maybe we can talk about destinations that would be interesting for people to travel to, if they're thinking about going and starting a business somewhere. What about you? Do you have any recommendations? Anywhere you think would be interesting?
Gosh, I've traveled to a number of places in Europe, and I've been to Quebec numerous times in Canada. Wonderful people. I've never been treated better anywhere I've been than when I have presented in Canada. I've been to Australia to present. I've never really thought about relocating to another country. So for me, and I have never been to the Middle East. Um, what are your thoughts? If you had to leave the Middle East and they said, okay, you cannot leave Israel, and you can't go back to Canada. You're going to have to pick somewhere else. Where would you go and why?
You know what? One of my favorite places in the world is actually the United States. I think that there are a lot of great cities there. And if you pick somewhere with a lot of people, you're going to meet a lot of expats. You're going to meet a lot of international people who are in the same boat as you and who want to make friends and see the place together. So I think that's, you could even stay like national. If any of your viewers are interested in trying a different city, that could be interesting. Um, in Europe, there are a lot of expats in Spain.
Hmm.
I've been to Madrid, I've been to Barcelona, and I've been to Valencia. And out of the three, I actually loved Valencia the most. It was authentic, very big, and the architecture was amazing, like amazing history. Where else? Um,
Yeah, my wife and I went to Spain and Portugal, spent almost 2 weeks, a river cruise along the Douro River. So several days in Madrid on land. I could easily live in Madrid. Loved it.
I
Loved
love
it.
Madrid too.
And one of the nice things is it's like the whole world speaks English. So if I go to Madrid, I don't have to worry
Yep.
about, well, I don't speak Spanish. Well, it doesn't matter. They all speak English. It's like
Yes.
the whole world has learned their native language and English. So it's like, okay, we're good.
Except France.
Oh,
Except maybe France.
now
But
I
yeah, I
have,
think
and well, now I've been to France, and everyone I encountered there actually spoke English. And of course, yeah, I mentioned Quebec and having spoken there a number of times, and they are just amazingly fluent in both. They speak, everyone speaks French and English. They don't necessarily like to speak English, but they can do it very well. And I tell people that when they answer the phone, they say bonjour, hello, as if it's one word, bonjour, hello. And then however you continue is how they continue. So I tell my friends, if they say bonjour, hello, and the only French word you know is bonjour, that is not going to be the time to impress anybody with your knowledge of French language, because as soon as you say bonjour, you're sunk. You're sunk. So yeah, it's amazing. All right. Well, Camilla, if someone wanted to work with you, because your online presence is just, it is amazing. You're a great
thank you
conversationalist.
so much.
And I can tell anybody, email, there's some people you email them and you're going to wind up emailing them 4 more times and leaving them 17 text messages before you ever hear back. You are on top of stuff. You turn things around so quickly. So it's a pleasure to work with you in
Thank
this
you. Likewise.
capacity. Yeah. Who is sort of your ideal client? Who is the kind of company that you would be the person they would want to call?
Okay, so I work with a lot of startups. That's actually really my background is working with tech startups. Um, but I am really getting more into finance now as well.
Uh-huh.
So finance companies are great. Um, I've worked with some companies related to self-improvement or productivity. So that's another great vertical. And I'm really happy to chat with anyone. So if you want to connect on Instagram or send me an email just to say hi, you're welcome.
Okay. And we will have all that kind of contact information, in the show notes in the body of the blog post. So if you're watching us on YouTube or if you're listening to us on the podcast, be sure to come over. It's going to be frankbuck.org. And then just click on the blog, and it's going to be right there at the top. This segment is airing the last of June 2025. So it'll be right there in order. So, Camilla, again, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a real pleasure.
I really enjoyed the conversation and thank you so much for hosting me. It's been great to catch up again.
You're welcome. I hope our conversation has given you some ideas and some motivation. If you too are thinking about making a big move or starting a big project, to learn more about Camilla, her background, the work she's doing now, and how you can work with her, visit the blog post at frankbuck.org/Camilla. Camellia is Camillia. Thanks to Camellia for being my guest, and thanks to you for tuning in. This has been Frank Buck, helping you get organized and make it look easy.